West Clipland, we have this variety of birds on the island, small, medium, and large billed, with this completely insurmountable geographic barrier. And the funny thing is that these birds, well, they've got a variety of food sources. Actually, let me just go ahead and, there's a bird, 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 there's a bird. Don't they? Now, what I just handed some folks as a bird is actually two parts. So they actually have a beak and they have a belly. Oh, you know where this is going. Good. So at the edges of that feeding ground, the birds crouch around, eagerly awaiting all of the food to ripen every season. And then they feed. And to feed, they gather food in their beak and they drop it in their belly. Now, there are a couple rules about beaks and bellies. You can't scoop. Your cup has to remain, your belly has to remain upright at all times. And you can only use these as sort of pinchers, you know. You can't shovel or anything like that. You got to grab like that. Seems easy enough. So the rest of you might think you don't have a job. Well, you do. You're going to watch carefully to make sure that nobody's violating the rules on the feeding ground. And should anybody get lucky enough to reproduce, you will become their offspring. How wonderful is that? Clipbirds can reproduce. It seems to be more or less asexual because we only have one parent. One parent has one offspring. That would indicate asexual reproduction. Completely unheard of in birds, but we're bending the rules a bit. Okay? Now, there are different foods in Clipland. We have marble fruit. Guess what marble fruit looks an awfully lot like? Marbles. Okay. Oh, good catch. You know what?
We're not doing that.
Okay, so did we say yesterday that different foods have different amounts of energy? Yeah. Well, marble fruit has 10 calories apiece. Nice. Then there is big toot fruit, which, yes, does look remarkably like dried lima beans. Every big toot fruit has 5 calories per piece. And then, this is my favorite, we have tiny toot fruit, which looks remarkably like what you and I might call popcorn.
Baby lima beans?
No, popcorn. Tiny toot fruit has only got 2 calories apiece. Okay, cool. Well, that's easy enough. So now, what I'm going to do, and I'm going to ask you guys to move your island up about a half a meter, because we'll need a little bit of space. What I'm going to do is invite all of the clipbirds from the eastern side of the island to come stand around the feeding ground. And of course, they cannot step inside the feeding ground. And there's the feeding ground. They cannot stand inside the feeding ground. They have to stay outside the feeding ground. But now, all of you, birds in the east, come stand around the feeding ground. Okay? Go. And now, all of you birds in the west, come stand around the feeding ground. Come stand around the feeding ground. And I might need to ask you guys to move up just a little bit more. Now! Oh, we're getting there. We're getting there. So, to start off with, we always want to, we're tracking, get your butt off the desk. Thank you. We're tracking population. Okay? So we're starting in the east and in the west with 2 big bills, 2 medium bills, and 2 little bills. So our distribution is flat. We don't have a normal distribution. We don't have a skewed distribution. It's totally flat. So what we're going to do is and I will give you one 60-second round to practice feeding because it's tougher than you think. And then we'll put all the food back out And we'll let you feed again, and we'll see who survives. So now that we know who reproduced and who died and who everybody lived, which is awesome, let's take a population count at the end of that first season. In the East, how many big-billed clipbirds do we now have? Raise your hand. 3. Good. How many medium-billed clipbirds do we have? 3? One of you reproduced. Okay, one of you reproduced. Excellent. And how many little-billed clipbirds do we have? Just 2. Okay, nobody got to reproduce yet. That's fine. And in the West, how many big-billed clipbirds do we now have? 4. That is fantastic. They're doing very well. And in the West, how many medium-billed clipbirds do we have? Just 2. And 2 small bills? Okay. All right. So, you know, here's the funny thing about islands. They are these little isolated ecosystems, right? And every now and then you have sort of climatic shifts. We had a major geologic crisis here. Every now and then you see changes in the food source. Ooh. So the food sources look a little bit different this year, don't they?
No, not really.
Funny how that happens. It's terrible. Your calories. Count your calories, and when you're done counting, you can put your food back in the bag.
I got 18.
When you're done counting, go ahead and put it back in the bag. If you died, I want your belly and your beak.
Oh, you're the one that died? Luke died.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. If you died, I want your belly and your beak. Okay.
What?
I know.
I wish I was on that side.
I know. You would have been just tearing it up.
No, we better grow some.
Yes, fly over the mountains. Fly to the west. Okay. Now, once you've got those bags cleaned up, I'd like them. Who reproduced? Corinne, you are so successful. Okay, Corinne, pick another baby. Okay, and Gavin, you reproduced. You're also medium?
Yeah, my kids are doing great.
Okay.
They got medium game.
Yay. Okay, and you are both small? You're small, Kaylee. Pick an offspring. Thank you, ma'am. And you're medium. And you reproduce, so pick an offspring. Okay, is there anybody else who needs an offspring? That means zip it for a minute. Timothy! Roar! That's my best dinosaur roar. Zip it! Oh my God. I just got Timothy to stop talking. Sorry, Timothy. There you are. And now I was looking at Logan. Okay, so, again, we sometimes... Oh, that was all recorded. Wonderful. For posterity. We sometimes, again, have changes in food sources over time. Can an ecological community change? Of course it can. It happens. It happens. Well, in the East, we now have... Are you ready? Clips up in the air. Count your calories. In the East, how many? Well, okay. Hold on. We'll do that before. Let's just look at who survived first off. Okay. Yes, that's the reproduction division. Good. Okay. So how many little bills do we have over here at this point?
No, that was the remainder.
Okay, 0. How many medium bills? 1, 2, just 2. How many big bills? 1, 2, 3. How'd that happen?
I think the first, yeah, it should be 3, 2, 0.
Wait.
No.
It should be 3, 2, 0 because the big bill's at the top. Little bill's at the bottom.
Oh, yeah, it should. Thanks.
From 1 to 3, do you produce
LOL.
You say so, dear.
It was just like you erased them and re-got them.
Yeah. Okay. In the West. How many small bills do I have? Just 1, 2, 2, 3. 3. Okay. How did we get an extra small bill in the season? Did I write that wrong? I bet I did. Pretty sure I did. Okay, how many medium bills do we have? 1, 2. How many large bills do we have? 1? Okay. So, I'll take that. Thank you. Who got to reproduce? Corinne! Gavin! Pick an offspring. Okay. And pick an offspring.
Timmy, you want to be my offspring?
Okay. Who in the West? Who got, hey, no. Okay, quit grabbing his butt, number 1. Number 2, pick somebody who hasn't been in the game yet. Huh? Have you gotten to be something? Have you gotten to be something? Tiffany hasn't gotten to be anything. Riley hasn't gotten to be anything. Hannah hasn't gotten to be anything. You pick somebody who hasn't been in the game yet. Okay. Who over here got to reproduce? Who got to reproduce in this round? Who had enough calories to reproduce? Oh my God, they are so loud.
How many mediums need to reproduce?
Depends on size. Did you get to reproduce? No? Emily, Paige, did either of you get to reproduce? Okay. So our numbers over here are constants. Copy. And okay, over here, let's do a quick population count. Hi. How many big bills do we have? Raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. How many medium bills? 1, 2, 3, 4. How many small bills? Oh. All right. Now, here's the thing. We're gonna stop it here. So I would like all of your bellies and beaks. You can drop the bellies right in the beaks. You don't have to clip them on. Just drop them straight in. Stack them here. Just lay them out here. Yeah, I'm sorry. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk. Did those clipbirds change in their lifetimes?
Yes.
Did they? No. So a big-billed clipbird who is suddenly presented with tiny little fruits, what do? They die. A tiny-billed clipbird who is suddenly presented with giant, marbly fruits. What do? They die! So here's the thing to remember, or one of the things to remember. Can an individual evolve over its lifetime? No, they sure can't. Oh, this thing is intolerable. Individuals don't evolve. You grow, you change, you develop. You don't evolve. So that large-billed clipbird, and suddenly the food source has changed, and there's no food that they can get their beak around that gives them enough calories to survive, they just die. That small-billed clipbird who's suddenly presented with nothing but gigantic marble fruit, they die. They don't have... Now, here's one thing I want to compliment one especially successful reproducer. That would be Corinne. Okay, Gavin too, but she was a knockout from the get-go. She was on getting that food. She was getting the calories. Because even though she had a medium bill, she worked out a way to get larger food. So, can individuals have behavioral adaptations? Yeah, and they can develop those. If you've got a brain that can learn something new, that's different than your genes changing. We're going to be finding popcorn for weeks. But individuals don't evolve. Populations evolve. So the genes that coded for larger beaks got less common on one side of the island. And the genes that coded for larger beaks got more common on one side of the island. Okay. So, first of all, we will get to that. What I'm going to give you, this is how you get points for having played a game. Okay? You played a game, you had fun. You guys were really pretty raucous, actually. I have this little analysis sheet. Okay? And this is just how I want you to work on these sort of, I mean, obviously, what role did you play? That's pretty easy. You don't need help with that. But then we're going to talk about the other questions. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
5, 6, 7, 8, 8.
Yes, you can count. I'm proud of you. Okay. So, okay. Obviously, what role you played, that's going to vary. You're going to answer that appropriately. What was the variation in the birds in the east? Beak size. What was the variation of the birds in the west? Beak size. Same exact thing. We had variation in this species that was identical east to west. What challenges do the birds face? And I'm going to say, actually, what challenge do all living things face? Getting enough calories. Getting enough food. Getting enough food to survive. Did you know that it takes more calories to reproduce than to survive? And the human body and all other species will actually shut down reproductive function if you're not getting enough calories. So for women, menses stop. For males, production of sperm stops. If you're not getting enough calories, the body goes, hey, no. You're barely keeping you alive. We don't have the energy to waste, interestingly enough. And we see that with the clipbirds. If they're not getting sufficient calories, they can't reproduce. Now, are the challenges that the birds faced in the east and the west identical? What challenge did the birds face in the east? So if you were not in the east, you might not know that over time in the east, the food sources got a lot more like that. They ended up with pretty much all marble fruit. Who was that really tough for? The little guys. Yeah, little guys died out. And we saw that. In the west, by the last round, their food looked all like this. Little tiny tooth fruit, which if you had a very large beak, it was very hard to get enough calories to survive, let alone reproduce with such tiny fruits. So what really controlled how gene frequencies, how traits shifted on each side of the island? Well, the environment, yeah, food choices, available food, available calories, changes in their environment, changes in their environment. So here's the deal. Monday, I will not be here. You will have a sub and Mr. Maple.
Yes.
Let me give you, I have not been out yet this year. Let me give you my little spiel on subs. As the best teacher I ever knew said, any fool can, any idiot can make a fool of a sub. Okay? You guys are a great class. Honestly, this year, I'm thrilled because I've got wonderful classes across the board. I've got nice folks. I don't have anybody with nasty attitudes. I have a few squirrels, but I like squirrels. I like the squirrely ones. I expect better behavior for a sub than you give me, okay? I have seen classes run over subs. I would not expect that any of you would do that because you're really a nice group. But I fully expect that what I leave to get done gets done and things march onward. Yes, good. So that said, on Monday, you're gonna get your study guides for the test. You'll have some time to work on those. I believe Mr. Maple is also going to play a Quizlet Live with you.
Yes.
And then Tuesday, we're going to finish up just a couple last concepts. We're just going to tie a few things together and revisit something that you've seen before, but we're going to talk about in light of clipbirds. So what I want you to do is, if you think you already know 8, good, answer it. These will get graded and they'll get passed back to you on Monday. And you may want to, at that point, modify your answer for number 8, because we're going to look at that together. Okay? Questions, comments, concerns? You guys did a fantastic job being clipbirds. You may be the rowdiest bunch of clipbirds I have ever had. And certainly, I've never had medium beaks who were that successful. That was a first. So, nice job. With that, when you're done with the sheet that you've got, go ahead and turn it in, and then in 3 minutes, you get to go to lunch.